Peace be with you. Today's video is about the meaning of the word Islam. This word is one of the most misunderstood words by Muslims and non-Muslims alike. It has taken a cultural context in most conversations, a cultural meaning in most conversations, and in such way has really lost its true meaning in the minds of most Muslims and non-Muslims alike. The word Islam means submission to God. Submission implies obedience. When you submit to something, you obey to it. So where I'm from, and in my experiences, I see so many people who consider themselves Muslims but do not practice the deen. They don't live the way God commanded. They don't do what God commanded, nor do they abstain from what God forbade. And yet they call themselves Muslims because they see themselves in this cultural context and see themselves as the good guys that are described by God in the Quran, even though their actions don't match the actions of the good guys that are described in the Quran. So when God says in the Quran, and whoever desires a deen other than Islam, it will not be accepted from him, and in the hereafter he shall be one of the losers. They don't see themselves in that verse, even though they don't practice anything, because they consider themselves to be Muslims, and that's the misconception that I want to consider, because people are throwing themselves into hellfire without even knowing, by lying to themselves. If we since I'm reading the Quran in English, we need to translate it fully, because the word Islam means submission to God. The verse actually goes, and whoever desires the deen other than obedience to God, submission to God, it will not be accepted from him, and in the hereafter he will be one of the losers. This tells us that there is no such thing as a non-practicing Muslim. And when I say non-practicing, I don't mean it in a cultural context to where you wear a certain type of dress or eat a certain type of food or whatever. I mean it in a behavioral way, because when God describes Muslims, he says they pray, they fast, they give charity, they respect their parents, they are kind to their neighbor, they are honest in business, they do not lie, they stand firmly for justice, and all of those things are so important that without that there is no Islam. That is Islam. So just because you were quote unquote born Muslim, that does not describe, these verses don't describe you. If you're not, unfortunately, a Muslim, you can consider yourself whatever you want to be. I'm not the one to tell anybody what God is going to do to them, but I'm just saying this is what the book says. This is the word that describes a certain type of behavior, Islam. But because we use it in context, and it evolved over a period of time like that, people have lost the ability to understand what it truly means. So there without obedience to God, there is no Islam and there is no Muslims. So that needs to be understood. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that whoever makes mistakes is not a Muslim. That's just not true. The word jihad is the second most misunderstood word in the Quran. It doesn't mean war. Qital means fighting in the Quran. Jihad means a struggle, and it's generally I can't recall exactly right now the whole of the Quran, but I don't remember recalling it in a war type of a context at all. So it is jihad, a struggle to be a Muslim and to live in Islam, meaning live in obedience to God. So it is a struggle. We all make mistakes. We struggle, and then you get better, and you get better, you get better, because you continue to struggle. And a good measuring stick that people should use is, you can just start with prayer and fasting, and if you're not doing that, you're not even struggling. You're not even getting to the important parts. If you can't use the tools, because prayer and fasting are tools. They are tools to get you, and God says in the Quran that these are tools. These are tools to help us remember God, to keep us away from indecency and evil, and to help us be thankful to God. So if you're not even using the tools, you're not even close. And that's a good measuring stick. So tools are easy. It's easy to pray. It's easy to get up in the morning and pray. It is easy to fast. All those things are easy. What is not easy is being always just, always having that depth of thought is, am I being just? because we're always biased toward ourselves or our close ones, or uh, it's not easy to not be greedy. It's not easy to you know control your anger. Those things are not easy, and those things are much harder to measure, because again, we are always biased to ourselves. We always forgive ourselves very quickly, while we hold grudges against others and we don't forgive others. So we are very unlikely to see ourselves as evil, even though if we commit tons and tons of evil. And that is why a measuring stick beginning measuring stick of prayer and fasting and all of that, if you're not doing all of that religiously, then you're not even trying. You're not even fighting a jihad. You're losing your struggle even before you started. You're losing your struggle just to pick up a tool, and so you're not even doing very well at all. You will never do very well at all. So Muslims who do not pray, Muslims who do not fast, they don't exist. It just does not make linguistic sense, because again, Islam is submission, that is obedience to God. So Muslims who don't obey God aren't really Muslims in a linguistical sense, linguistic sense. And that's what I kind of wanted to explain in this video. And I also wanted to add that we are all struggling to obey God, and we need to fight that jihad within ourselves in order to win it. So whoever desires a way other than submission to God, it will not be accepted from him. So if you desire to do what God forbade, or you don't want to do what God commanded, you are desiring other than Islam. And although you may see yourself as a Muslim, that's not what God describes in the Quran. Very important to understand the language, and especially for the people who have not read the Quran in a word, in a language they speak natively, and who have not studied the Quran, and who are not, for example, native Arabic speakers. It's very easy to get misguided, because the cultural aspects of what we call Islam, meaning a Middle Eastern culture, or whatever culture, it isn't just a Middle Eastern culture. Every culture has their own variation of Islam that they kind of promote as Islam. So we have to kind of remember that that's not Islam. That's just our culture. True Islam is described in the Quran. It is a very few actions that are necessary and expected of Muslims, like I've already described. Respecting our parents, be honest in business, not lying, standing firmly for justice, controlling our anger, controlling our chastity, controlling our morality, being humble, and all of those things. It takes a lifetime to perfect, believe it or not, and you will only understand that once you try to perfect them. Once you try following the deen of God, meaning following the way or religion of God, and you will understand that it is a jihad to get there, meaning it is a struggle to get there, to be very good at it. And make no mistake, God wants us to be very good at it, because this is what is expected of the people of heaven, because these are the only people that are going to be allowed into heaven, because if you allow the corrupt ones, they're just going to corrupt heaven, and God is not going to allow that. So that's it. Islam. That is what we have to understand about it. That is the religion of God. That's all.